Good morning, I'm Taylor Wilson, and today is Thursday, June 5th, 2025. This is The Excerpt. Today, Elon Musk tries to nuke Trump's tax plan. Plus, we take a look at this week's travel ban, and let's talk about drones. An explosive tweet fired off by President Donald Trump ally Elon Musk yesterday sent a tremor through the White House as it aims to shore up Senate support for Trump's tax bill. For more on that story, my colleague Dana Taylor spoke with USA Today's senior Congress reporter Riley Beggin.
Thanks for coming on the show, Riley.
Of course.
Let's start with this very strongly worded tweet from Musk. What did it say exactly, and what's the reaction been so far?
So what he posted on his platform X is that his followers, which there's more than 220 million of them, should call their lawmakers and urge them to, quote, kill the bill. This is a reference to this sweeping GOP tax bill that Republicans are working on. It's already passed the House and it's here in the Senate. A lot of things still to work on here, so it's certainly a bomb that's been thrown in the middle of this.
And this comes on the heels of some strongly worded tweets from Musk Tuesday. What happened there?
On Tuesday, he called the bill a, quote, disgusting abomination, also very strong words, and suggested that Republicans who voted for the package should face primary challenges. And for context, Elon Musk has put a lot of money into political races over the last cycle. He's said he's done with it, but this may indicate that he wants back in. The other thing I'll mention is that, when he says the Republicans who voted for this package should face primary challenges, that is all of them. All the Republicans in the House voted for this bill except for just two. So it's certainly a sweeping demand.
So Musk, on the one hand, has been a huge help to Trump, funneling around $300 million into his campaign. And then on the other, he's now leading the criticism surrounding this big budget bill. What are you hearing on this front?
It's definitely been a surprise to Republican lawmakers who've been working on this and have been working relatively closely with him and with the Trump administration on cutting back government spending. House Speaker Mike Johnson told reporters on Wednesday that he thinks that Musk is, quote, flat wrong, and he seemed really surprised by the comments. Johnson said he reached out to Musk and wasn't able to get through, and then Musk is responding to this on X in a public platform. He seemed a little taken aback. At the same time, I'll say the rank and file lawmakers and senators have said, the people who care about this is the media. This doesn't matter to us. Elon Musk is not a legislator, and in the end, we have to do what's right for our constituents.
Riley, as you mentioned, at the end of the day, Musk can say all he wants. He's technically no longer a special employee with the Trump administration. Bottom line it for us here. Could Musk's social posts actually impact the Senate's consideration of Trump's budget priorities?
I think the biggest impact you're going to see potentially from Elon Musk's commentary here is making those Republicans who already feel that this package is too expensive more resolute in their objections. So there are senators who are considering this legislation right now, Ron Johnson of Wisconsin or Rand Paul of Kentucky, who have drawn pretty bold red lines saying, this is too expensive. I'm not going to vote for it unless we can cut the amount of spending that's in this package. So we can expect potentially them to dig in even further, be less swayed when knowing that the richest man on earth is on their side. But in the end, we'll have to see. They can lose 3 votes in the Senate and still get it through. So if everyone else hangs together, it may be just fine for them.
Riley Beggin is the senior Congress and campaigns reporter for USA Today. It's always good to have you on the Excerpt, Riley.
Thank you for having me.
The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office said about 10.9 million Americans would lose health insurance coverage through 2034 under Trump's tax bill, including more than 1 million undocumented residents. The legislation that cleared the House would require non-disabled Americans on Medicaid to work at least 80 hours per month or qualify for an exemption, like being a student or caregiver. The bill also would strip coverage to immigrants who get Medicaid through state-funded programs. The CBO had earlier estimated nearly 4 million people would lose health insurance coverage through 2034 if Congress did not extend sweetened COVID-19 pandemic-era tax credits that have made ACA plans more affordable for consumers. It was another day of whiplash news out of the Trump administration. Trump issued a travel ban blocking the entry of foreign nationals from 12 countries into the United States. He cited national security risks posed by citizens of the targeted nations, which include several Middle Eastern and African countries. He also partially restricted the entry of foreign nationals from 7 other nations. Those under the full ban range from Afghanistan to Haiti and Sudan. In his announcement, Trump pointed to last weekend's fiery assault on pro-Jewish demonstrators in Colorado. The suspect is a native of Egypt who came to the U.S. on a tourist visa in late 2022 and stayed after the visa expired. Trump's move revives a controversial policy from his first term that is likely to be challenged in court. Meanwhile, in separate news, the Education Department yesterday sent a letter urging Columbia University's accreditor to rescind its century-old accreditation status, which the Ivy League school relies on to receive federal financial aid funding. The announcement comes as President Trump's administration continues to intensify its pressure on selective universities over accusations of rampant anti-Semitism and liberal bias. President Trump said Russian President Vladimir Putin told him during a call yesterday that he planned to retaliate against Ukraine's recent surprise drone attack that destroyed dozens of Russian bombers. Trump, in a post on Truth Social, described the 75-minute phone call with Putin as a good conversation, but added it was not a conversation that will lead to immediate peace. The call was the first time Trump has spoken to Putin since he publicly warned the Russian president last week that he was playing with fire by attacking Ukraine amid peace talks. For more on Russia and Ukraine's peace negotiation process, as well as NATO's role in that and other critical security concerns gripping Europe, be sure to tune in today, beginning at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, when you can hear my colleague Dana Taylor's conversation with Council on Foreign Relations Senior Fellow Max Boot. A recent Ukraine drone attack shows that familiar-looking drones can be terrifying weapons. I talked about drones with USA Today national correspondent Elizabeth Weiss. Thanks as always for joining me, Beth.
Happy to be here.
So just starting with what we've seen recently in Europe, how have we seen drones used as part of warfare there?
People have been using drones in warfare for decades. And in fact, the US first used them in Afghanistan in 2001. But things really took a major turn probably about 2 years ago in the war in Ukraine. After Russia invaded Ukraine, it was clear that Ukraine just didn't have the resources, the backing, the armament that Russia did. And so they began to iterate on the fly. And one of the things they started working with is the use of drones to do surveillance, to send out bombs, and as we saw earlier this week, to perform a major attack that destroyed dozens of Russian bombers deep inside Russia. So we've really entered a new phase.
Beth, I think folks have different ideas of drones in their head when they hear that word. How different are war drones like these from play drones?
That is what surprised me, and that was kind of the impetus behind this story, is that if you like to watch action movies, and I certainly do, you tend to think of drones as, they're maybe a little smaller than a car, and they're an unmanned aerial vehicle that somebody someplace else is piloting, and they carry bombs or whatever, but they're big, they're an expensive piece of military technology. And what's changed is that the drones that the Ukrainians are using, and that increasingly the Russians are using against the Ukrainians, they're just off the shelf drones that you could buy, and people buy them online. You can go into a store and buy them. A lot of them come from China. But then what the Ukrainians started doing is they would take these off the shelf drones, which are pretty sophisticated in and of themselves, and they would write new software for them. They would fabricate new components for them. They're doing a lot of 3D printing to allow them to do different things. And so if you were to be in a battlefield and you saw one going by, it wouldn't look all that different from the ones you might see if you're out at the beach and somebody's got a drone up, taking pictures of the water. And that actually was a big surprise to me.
Considering that, Beth, you spoke with one expert who said the nature of warfare has transformed. How does the U.S. military approach this technology?
So the U.S. has been concerned about drones and working on the concept of both protecting people against drones and how you use them on the battlefield for a couple of decades. I mean, there actually was a congressional report that just came out April 1st looking into this. How can we protect ourselves against drones, and how might they be used both in military settings and in terror settings. And so people are thinking about them. I think in the US, the big concern is that they might become an avenue for terrorists to attack. And that hasn't really happened yet, but it is something that people are thinking about.
And of course, drones are being used for all kinds of nonviolent, non-war related purposes. What are some of the innovations we've seen, Beth, and how are these things becoming a bigger part of our daily lives?
That's the thing to remember is that here and across much of the world, drones are really remarkable technology that make all these fantastic things not only available, but cheap in ways that you never could have imagined. I first started seeing them when I was covering agriculture about 20 years ago, and farmers were just thrilled because you could send a drone out into a field to inspect it without having to walk through it or drive something through it. You can use them to inspect power lines, bridges, buildings. Insurance companies use them because, especially if there's been a claim, maybe after a big storm, you send out drones, you can look all over a building. If you've looked at Zillow or any of the real estate sites and you see those gorgeous images of, kind of coming up on and over a house so that you can see its gardens, that's all shot with drones. They're used in search and rescue operations. And we use them actually in the military. In fact, the people that I talked to at Virginia Tech, which has the Mid-Atlantic Aviation Partnership Program, they actually trained USA Today videographers 10 years ago in how to use drones to capture footage of big things like floods, forest fires. And I remember when our photographers first started going out with drones and you had to call in a special photographer who had the training who could take a drone up, but you got these incredible shots. And now you see them everywhere. So it's a remarkable innovation and far from being a toy. I mean, they're just a multi-million-dollar industry that has made a lot of things better. But like all things, humans can always find a way to make them deadly.
All right, Elizabeth Weiss is a national correspondent with USA Today. Thanks, Beth.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for listening to The Excerpt. You can get the podcast wherever you get your audio. And if you're on a smart speaker, just ask for The Excerpt. I'm Taylor Wilson, and I'll be back tomorrow with more of The Excerpt from USA Today.